Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk about something really important. Earlier this year, I was hired to be a performer on a major tour with somebody who is huge in the industry. So I was excited, proud of myself for getting the opportunity. Um, Unfortunately, some things happened, and I can't get into the details of exactly what that was, because it's already a legal issue right now. But the reason why I'm speaking out about this is because getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that, simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work, is not okay. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there who have been afraid to speak up, and I understand. And if that's you, I see you. And that's pretty much it. More updates to come soon.
The shift in Will Smith's public image didn't creep in slowly or unfold over years. It hit all at once like a switch being flipped in real time, and everyone watching could feel it. It began the moment his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, openly spoke about her entanglement with singer August Alsina. What might have stayed a private marital issue instead became a public spectacle, replayed endlessly across interviews, headlines, and social media clips. Overnight, the image of Will Smith as the smooth, confident, untouchable superstar cracked. The man who had spent decades cultivating the role of Hollywood's good guy was suddenly being viewed through a completely different lens. Internet jokes exploded, sympathy mixed with ridicule, and the respect he'd built over a lifetime started slipping through his fingers in real time. For many fans, that was the first moment they saw Will not as a larger-than-life icon.
You see the hundreds of celebrities that I've done business with, and things with. During the latter years of our relationship, Will was not my friend. I was his friend. I could tell you what goes on the inside. Everybody else is just speculation. And then I saw acts that when I walked in on.
Who'd you walk in on?
Him and Dwayne Martin. Door to Dwayne dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having sex with Will. There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing, like murder. It was there.
But as someone exposed, vulnerable, and publicly humiliated, the aura of control and confidence he had carefully crafted was gone, replaced by endless memes, commentary, and armchair psychology dissecting his marriage and masculinity. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It felt like the public was watching a personal unraveling, and no one could look away. Then came the Oscars night, the moment that permanently altered his legacy. On the biggest stage in entertainment, with millions of eyes locked in, Will Smith walked up and slapped Chris Rock live on air. The room froze. The audience didn't know whether to laugh, gasp, or sit in stunned silence. It was one of those moments where time seemed to stop, and everyone watching knew instantly that they were witnessing something that would never be forgotten. Will framed it as defending his wife's honor, but that explanation only deepened the divide. Some people rallied behind him, calling it an emotional breaking point. Others saw it as an unforgivable lapse in judgment. What everyone agreed on was this: the image of Will Smith would never be the same again. That single action fractured public opinion and followed him everywhere afterward. Apologies, explanations, and awards bans came and went, but the stain lingered. The man who once symbolized charm, discipline, and success was now synonymous with controversy. And just when it felt like the damage might finally stabilize, things took another sharp turn. A former employee stepped forward with explosive allegations, filing a lawsuit that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Almost immediately, whispers began spreading behind the scenes. Industry insiders started asking the questions no one wanted to say out loud. Was this just another isolated incident, or was this the beginning of something much bigger? Comparisons to the growing storm surrounding Sean Diddy Combs started surfacing, and suddenly Will Smith's name was being spoken in the same uneasy conversations. What was once a story about a slap and a marriage became something darker. The fall of Will Smith started to feel like one of Hollywood's most dramatic cautionary tales. A man once celebrated as a global role model now found himself trapped in a relentless cycle of allegations, speculation, and scrutiny. His name was no longer tied primarily to movies or achievements, but to headlines filled with doubt and discomfort. And as new allegations surfaced, fans who grew up admiring him were left shaken.
The church. Because of these allegations, these things that you...
A whole wide variety of reasons. It isn't a very simple answer. I left because my wife wanted me to, and also because I wasn't making any money, because all the money flows, of course, to my father, always has. I was also tired of the fraud and the deception, plus his deep involvement in personal use of drugs on himself and others, black magic.
When you say black magic, what are you talking about? I mean, some of the things that I read in the stack of material, it sounds just absolutely unbelievable. What are you talking about when you say this?
Well, the funny thing is that the actual truth is about as far out as Scientology itself. Really, the basis of Scientology, which is rather hidden and covered over, is the occult, the deep involvement with satanic powers. That he felt that he was deeply involved with a British black magician called Aleister Crowley, and through putting himself in deep hypnotic trances and the use of drugs on himself, he wanted to become the most powerful.
The lawsuit at the center of this new chapter was reportedly filed by a former employee accusing Will Smith of serious misconduct, including harassment and manipulation. These claims spread quickly through industry circles, adding fuel to an already blazing fire. The story first began quietly, almost invisibly, back in December, when the accuser, musician Brian King Joseph, known for his violin performances, posted a cryptic video online. At the time, it didn't seem like much. He hinted that something disturbing had happened while working closely with a powerful figure in entertainment, but he didn't name names. Because Brian wasn't a household name, the video barely made a ripple. It slipped under the radar, overshadowed by louder celebrity news. But that silence didn't last. Everything changed weeks later when Brian officially filed a lawsuit against Will Smith and his production company, Trey Ball Studios. That was the moment the story exploded into public view. Court documents revealed disturbing claims. Brian accused Smith and his company of harassment, wrongful termination, and predatory behavior. According to the filing, the alleged conduct began shortly after Brian joined Will's 2025 tour project in 2024. He claimed that Smith began giving him an unusual level of personal attention, far beyond what would be considered normal or professional. Long hours alone during rehearsals, private conversations, and repeated interactions that made him feel singled out. At first, Brian reportedly didn't see the attention as threatening. He believed it was admiration from a powerful celebrity, possibly even mentorship. After all, being noticed by someone like Will Smith could easily feel like a career-defining opportunity. But as time went on, the tone shifted. Brian claimed the attention became uncomfortable, unsettling, and increasingly difficult to ignore. What once felt flattering began to feel invasive. That growing discomfort reached a breaking point during a major tour stop in Las Vegas in March 2025. According to the lawsuit, Brian returned to his hotel room, which had been booked and managed by Smith's team, and immediately sensed something was wrong. There were no broken locks, no signs of forced entry, nothing obvious to explain it. Yet the room felt disturbed, as if someone had been inside without his permission. That moment marked a turning point, the realization that whatever was happening behind the scenes wasn't just professional tension or misunderstanding, but something far more troubling. Earlier that same day, Brian's bag, which contained his hotel room key, had allegedly gone missing while under the supervision of the tour's management team. That detail later became crucial because it could explain how someone gained access to the room without leaving visible damage. When Brian stepped inside, he claimed he found several strange and unsettling items scattered around the space. Wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, hospital discharge papers belonging to someone he didn't know, and medication labeled with another person's name. To Brian, it felt intentional, like a message rather than an accident. Those details became central to his claims, reinforcing his belief that what he was experiencing wasn't random, it was calculated. And from that moment on, the story of Will Smith shifted yet again, from public embarrassment to something far more serious, with implications that reached far beyond one man's reputation and straight into the darkest conversations about power, access, and silence in Hollywood. Then came the most chilling detail of all, a handwritten note left on the table that read, "Brian, I'll be back no later than 5:30. Just us." At the bottom was a drawn heart. Brian interpreted this as a deeply inappropriate message implying something was about to happen. Alarmed, he contacted hotel security, a local non-emergency police line, and Will Smith's representatives immediately. From that Las Vegas night forward, Nothing felt normal anymore, and Brian King Joseph says the energy around him shifted instantly. According to the lawsuit, the sense of protection he thought came with being part of a major tour vanished overnight. Conversations became colder, access was limited, and people who once smiled suddenly avoided eye contact. He claimed it felt like he had crossed an invisible line, one that nobody explicitly explained, but everyone seemed to understand. What made the situation even more unsettling was how quickly the narrative around him began to change. Brian alleged that once he raised concerns, whispers started circulating that he was difficult, unstable, or misinterpreting things. That kind of labeling, according to the filing, didn't feel accidental. It felt strategic, like a slow attempt to isolate him and undermine his credibility before he could say anything publicly. Inside Hollywood, that tactic isn't new at all. Industry insiders have long said that when someone speaks up against a powerful name, the first move isn't legal, it's reputational. You don't attack the claim immediately, you attack the person making it. You question their motives, their mental state, their intentions until doubt spreads faster than facts. Brian's lawsuit claims that after reporting the hotel room incident, he expected at least some kind of internal investigation or acknowledgement. Instead, he says he was met with disbelief and hostility. According to the filing, a member of the tour's management accused him of lying and overreacting, framing the entire situation as paranoia rather than a legitimate concern. That response, Brian argues, made it clear that the system wasn't designed to protect him at all. Not long after that confrontation, the hammer dropped. Brian was told the tour was moving in a different direction and his services were no longer needed. No warning, no gradual phase out, just a clean and sudden exit. He was replaced almost immediately, reinforcing his belief that the decision had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with silence. That firing became one of the strongest pillars of his lawsuit. According to Brian, it wasn't just termination, it was retaliation. He claims he was punished for speaking up, removed before he could escalate the situation further, and cut off from a career-changing opportunity that had already been promised to him. What makes this hit harder is Brian's background. He wasn't some random hire. He was a respected musician known for blending classical violin with modern performance, and he had already built a solid reputation before joining the project. That's why supporters argue he had no incentive to fabricate a story that could destroy his own career. As word of the lawsuit spread, comparisons started forming fast, and not by accident. Many people immediately drew parallels between Brian's claims and other high-profile cases involving powerful figures in entertainment. The pattern felt familiar: private access framed as mentorship, special attention sold as opportunity, boundaries blurred under the excuse of creativity or connection. That's where the shadow of Sean Diddy Combs re-entered the conversation again, not because the cases are identical, but because the alleged structure feels similar. Influence at the top, silence below, and a system that rewards compliance while punishing resistance. In Diddy's case, multiple accusers described being pulled into private environments under the promise of career growth. They claimed the power imbalance was obvious, but the pressure was subtle. Nothing was forced outright, everything was implied. And according to Brian's lawsuit, that same implied pressure existed here too. Brian alleged that the attention he received wasn't aggressive at first, it was calm, flattering, almost validating. He said it made him feel chosen, special, and protected. That emotional setup, according to his claims, is what made the later events so confusing and disturbing. Psychologists who study power dynamics often point out that grooming doesn't look like chaos at the start. It looks like trust, it looks like opportunity, it looks like someone powerful taking an interest in you when nobody else does. And that's why, Brian argues, it took time for him to even recognize what was happening. As more people began dissecting the lawsuit, another uncomfortable layer emerged. The timing. This wasn't happening during Will Smith's peak dominance. It was happening after years of public scrutiny, personal exposure, and image damage. That context matters because power doesn't disappear overnight, it just operates differently. After the Oscars incident, Will Smith's authority in Hollywood didn't vanish, but it changed. Studios became cautious, public appearances were limited, projects stalled, and when power feels threatened, some believe control becomes more private, more personal, and more desperate. That idea fed directly into the darker online theories. Some commentators claim that Will's alleged behavior reflected someone clinging to relevance and influence behind the scenes, not through box office numbers, but through access, loyalty, and control over people still trying to break through. Then came the resurfacing of older rumors that many fans had ignored for years. Whispers about Will Smith's private life, his friendships, and his inner circle suddenly felt louder, not because new proof emerged, but because the context changed. When someone's image cracks, old stories rush back through the opening. One of the most talked about rumors involved claims made by a former personal assistant who alleged witnessing intimate behavior between Will Smith and actor Dwayne Martin. The claims weren't new, but their timing was explosive. Social media lit up instantly, splitting fans into camps of disbelief and suspicion. Will Smith's team moved quickly to shut that story down, calling it fabricated and attention-seeking. Will and Jada both dismissed the claims publicly, framing them as a failed money scheme. They even hinted at legal action, though no lawsuit followed. That silence only added more debate. Online, people started noticing patterns again, similar accusations, similar denials, similar language. To some, it felt like a script Hollywood had used before. To others, it was proof of nothing more than rumor culture spiraling out of control. Still, the overlap was impossible to ignore for many viewers. The Brian King Joseph lawsuit added weight to the idea that something deeper might be happening. Not because it proved anything outright, but because it echoed themes of secrecy, manipulation, and power imbalance. At this point, the conversation shifted from individual behavior to systems. People weren't just asking what Will Smith did or didn't do. They were asking how Hollywood structures opportunity, who controls access, and what happens to people who refuse to play along. That's where Will Smith's early career history re-entered the spotlight. Long before movie stardom, he had already tasted massive success as a rapper and massive failure just as quickly. Millions earned, millions spent, and then everything collapsing at once. Will himself has spoken openly about that financial crash. He admitted spending recklessly, not paying taxes, and suddenly finding himself broke despite fame. The IRS seizure wasn't just embarrassing, it was devastating. He was known everywhere but had nothing to show for it. That moment of desperation changed everything. According to Will, it was the lowest point of his life, famous but broke, recognized but powerless, and that vulnerability set the stage for his next chapter in Hollywood. Enter Benny Medina, a powerful manager with vision, influence, and access. Medina believed Will could be the perfect lead for a new show concept and invited him into rooms filled with industry giants. One invitation led to another until Will found himself standing in front of Quincy Jones himself. That legendary audition story has been told countless times. Quincy clearing the room, asking Will to perform on the spot, and immediately greenlighting him for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It sounds like destiny, talent meeting opportunity at exactly the right moment. But over the years, that story has developed a darker echo. Some insiders claim Hollywood doesn't move that cleanly. They argue that talent alone rarely opens doors that fast without strings attached. And while no proof exists, the rumors refuse to die. Those whispers became louder when people looked at Benny Medina's own history. Over the years, Medina has faced serious allegations from multiple men, including actor Jason Dotley, who publicly accused him of assault in 2008. The accusations were detailed, emotional, and disturbing. Hotel security reviewed surveillance footage and reportedly found no signs of forced entry. However, the footage allegedly showed members of Will Smith's management team entering and exiting the room throughout the day. That meant whoever had been inside wasn't a stranger, but someone connected to the tour itself. When Brian raised these concerns with management, the lawsuit claims the situation escalated in a disturbing way. Instead of being supported, he was allegedly accused of lying and publicly shamed for speaking up. Soon after, he was informed that the tour was moving in a different direction and was abruptly fired, then replaced by another violinist. Brian claimed this entire sequence wasn't random at all. According to his filing, it reflected a clear pattern of predatory behavior hidden behind the glamorous surface of a high-profile tour. He alleged that the situation went beyond workplace misconduct and was an attempt to groom and condition him for deeper exploitation within the industry. Brian claimed Will Smith used his power to blur boundaries, test limits, and slowly manipulate him from the very start. He said he felt as though he was being broken into the industry, something insiders have whispered about for years. He believed that if he had gone along with the alleged advances, his career could have skyrocketed, but at a heavy personal cost. These claims immediately reminded the public of the lawsuit involving Rodney Lil Rod Jones and Sean Diddy Combs. Jones similarly accused Diddy of drawing him in under mentorship, encouraging closeness, and pushing boundaries behind closed doors. That parallel is exactly why Brian's claims hit so hard, because they echoed patterns people believe exist behind Hollywood's polished image. According to Brian, the note in the hotel room wasn't random. He believed it was meant to be a test, a moment designed to see how far he would go to prove loyalty to a powerful figure. His lawsuit suggested that night in Las Vegas was supposed to be an initiation into what insiders allegedly called the club, a secretive circle where boundaries are pushed in exchange for fame and access. Instead of staying silent, Brian reported what happened and soon after lost his job. He is now suing Will Smith and Trey Ball Studios for wrongful termination, harassment, and emotional distress, claiming the ordeal left him dealing with long-term anxiety and trauma. In response, Will Smith's legal team issued a firm denial. Their statement read, "Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and ensure that the truth is brought to light." The statement released by Will Smith's legal team was calm, calculated, and carefully worded, the kind of response Hollywood has perfected over decades, professional, polite, firm, and to many observers painfully familiar. Almost immediately, critics began pointing out how closely it resembled the standard denial playbook used by powerful figures when serious allegations surface. Words like false, baseless, and reckless were all there, stitched together in a way that sounded less like a unique defense and more like a template. As the controversy continues to unfold, fans and industry insiders are watching closely, waiting to see whether more evidence will surface or whether this too will quietly fade into the background. What made people uneasy wasn't just the denial itself, but how similar it sounded to statements issued in other high-profile cases. Sean Diddy Combs, for example, said nearly the exact same thing when Cassie filed her explosive lawsuit against him. He publicly dismissed her claims as outrageous lies and insisted they had no basis in reality. Yet just one day later, Diddy settled the case for tens of millions of dollars behind closed doors. Then came the moment that changed public perception completely. Hotel surveillance footage surfaced, appearing to show a violent altercation between Diddy and Cassie, mirroring what she had described in her legal filing. That footage shattered the illusion of certainty around celebrity denials and forced people to ask an uncomfortable question. How many times have polished statements been used to stall, distract, or control the narrative before the truth catches up? In Will Smith's case, the situation feels even more layered. Beyond the lawsuit accusing him of harassment, manipulation, and abuse of power, there's another long-standing rumor that has followed him for years, one that many assumed would never resurface so loudly. Speculation about Will's alleged attraction to men has circulated quietly in Hollywood circles for decades, but in late 2023, it came roaring back into public view. A former personal assistant to Will Smith went on Tasha K's platform and made shocking claims, alleging that he personally witnessed Will Smith and actor Dwayne Martin in an intimate encounter. The interview detonated online almost instantly. Social media erupted. Some fans dismissed it outright as clout chasing, while others began revisiting old rumors with fresh eyes. The assistant insisted he was telling the truth, claiming Hollywood hides far more than it ever shows the public. His words reignited years of speculation and added another layer to Will Smith's already fractured public image. Suddenly, what once looked like isolated rumors began to feel, at least to some, like pieces of a larger puzzle. The narrative around Will started shifting from misunderstood star to a man potentially living a carefully managed double life. Will Smith's representatives moved fast. Within hours, his team issued a firm denial, calling the allegations completely fabricated and labeling them a desperate attempt to gain attention and money. Will and Jada Pinkett Smith both brushed off the claims publicly, framing them as absurd and accusing the accuser of trying to pull off a financial scheme. They even hinted at legal action for defamation, though no lawsuit has materialized so far. Still, the damage was done. Online commentators couldn't help but notice the parallels between Will's response and Diddy's earlier denials. Similar accusations, similar outrage, similar language, and that similarity alone was enough to keep the conversation alive. Then came the lawsuit from Brian King Joseph, which poured gasoline on an already raging fire. To many observers, it added weight to the idea that something deeper might be happening behind the scenes. Fans began questioning whether Will Smith's public image, carefully cultivated over decades, was finally cracking under pressure. Rumors spread that he may have been presenting one version of himself to the world while engaging in something far more complex and hidden privately. For longtime followers of Will's career, some argued these rumors didn't come out of nowhere. Will Smith's rise to fame was anything but smooth. Before the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air made him a household name, he was already famous as a rapper under the name The Fresh Prince. On the surface, it looked like success. In reality, his finances were a mess. Despite earning millions, Will spent recklessly, buying expensive homes, cars, jewelry, and living like his income would never stop. Then the music stopped. His next album flopped hard, and on top of that, he hadn't paid his taxes. The IRS came after him aggressively, leaving him broke, embarrassed, and desperate. Will later admitted that period nearly destroyed him. He once joked that his album went double plastic instead of platinum. The irony was brutal. He was famous everywhere he went, yet financially ruined. The IRS seized his possessions, and he found himself in debt with no clear path forward. He described riding the bus while strangers recognized him, asking how someone so famous could be so broke. At that point, his future looked uncertain at best. Everything changed the night he met Benny Medina, who had an idea for a sitcom loosely based on his own life, believed Will could be the perfect lead. Their connection was immediate. Medina invited Will to Quincy Jones's birthday party, an event packed with Hollywood power brokers. Quincy Jones wasn't just a legendary producer, he was a kingmaker. According to Will, Quincy cleared the room, asked him to audition on the spot, and was impressed enough to greenlight what would become the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Overnight, Will Smith's life was transformed, but this is where the rumors begin to darken. For years, whispers have suggested that Knight wasn't just about talent. Some insiders claim that Hollywood success often comes with unspoken expectations, initiation rituals, and compromises demanded by those in power. There is no hard proof of this in Will's case, but the rumors persist, fueled by how quickly his fortunes changed and by the shadowy histories of the people who helped him rise. As these stories pile up, some believe Will Smith wasn't just shaped by Hollywood's darker systems, but eventually became part of them. A gatekeeper rather than just a participant. Someone who learned the rules early, survived them, and possibly perpetuated them. Add in his rumored ties to Scientology, his attendance at events, and his involvement in schools linked to his teachings, and the picture grows even more complex. While Will has denied membership, critics argue the connections speak for themselves. To many observers, Will Smith's story now feels less like a simple fall from grace and more like a slow unraveling of something carefully constructed. Fame, secrecy, power, and silence all woven together. Whether the allegations against him hold up in court or collapse under scrutiny remains to be seen. But the conversation isn't going away. Too many patterns feel familiar, too many names repeat, and too many people are starting to ask the same question. How much of Hollywood's shine is built on things we were never meant to see? The story of Will Smith's rise and potential downfall is still unfolding, leaving the public stuck between rumor and reality, suspicion and proof. And as more voices speak up, one thing is clear: Hollywood doesn't like its secrets challenged, so now it's on you. What do you think about everything we just covered? Do these claims feel believable? Or is this just another example of how rumors spiral out of control in celebrity culture? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if this breakdown made you think, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into the stories the mainstream keeps tiptoeing around.